Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Let's Get Together, a social club for seniors. We are proud to offer this series with funding from AeroCare's Lockheed Martin employees and Hesta Stewart Christian Trust. Some of these programs are recorded and some are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am Martha Brown, your host for today's activities. Today, we are getting a behind the scenes look at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History. And we are having Caleb, Bethany, Lee, and Kirsty to bring us all of this interesting information. I'm fascinated. Folks, y'all just take it away.
Thank you. All right. So I randomly was like, hey, Bethany, a week prior, let's do a behind the scenes. Let's bring up the monitor and let's see what we can talk about and show y'all. Since normally we're in the distance learning and we just decided to let's experiment, let's see how it works. You'll have to be patient with us, but we can show you and talk about how we install an exhibit. So right now we're up in Havener, which is on the second floor of the museum. And we're utilizing about 2/3 of the space currently. And the goal was to have a couple of collection-driven exhibits focusing on our collection, just ours. And so we can kind of show you how it is in progress. This debuts at the end of the week on Friday. And tomorrow we're going to start doing those finishing touches. So we will talk about transformation of weaponry. And Caleb and Kirsty, you're going to see people walking back and forth. You might hear a little bit of like random noise. That's just us installing. We've got people in the back. We've got security made their debut as they walked back behind checking stuff. But we'll rotate the camera so you're able to see everything and then ask questions.
And I also will have I have my phone so that we can zoom into anything. If there's something that you want to look at, just let me know and I'll go to that case and you'll be able to look at it. It's in right now the orange box.
And we find out that works really well because you can see both of us and we can talk about it. All right, so let's see what's behind us because we have all kinds of things. So this one is the transformation of weaponry. We've got cases on either side of us. And then Steve, if you look in the back, you'll see some firearms. That whole wall is going to have firearms. We had some custom built cases and there'll be 5 of them, roughly that size.
Okay.
And that's what Kirsty and Caleb they're working on. They're mounting those. So they're very heavy.
I was say they're very heavy.
They are heavy. But the idea behind this exhibit was we wanted to focus on weapons, but Caleb wanted to open up a larger time frame. So we're starting thousands of years ago with projectile points, obsidian and stone tools, lithics, and then he caps it at World War I. And so we have a World War I practice rifle that's made out of, it's wood, it's a practice rifle. And then we have other firearms. So there's it's a large time period, but the goal was to focus on a few international pieces as well as how these items are made. So the technology, whether that's, blades, not just firearms, but you've got tools and all of that. And how it's made, whether it's utilizing metal, wood, stone, bone, any of that. We wanted people to be able to come in roughly, chronologically speaking, and see. Sure, Kirsty's going to tell you about it.
Please do.
Typically use that if we're needing to get up higher because even a 15-foot ladder is not able to reach the ceiling that's in here. So the scissor lift, it just will expand until you can get up to about almost 20 feet. So it lets us change out the different lighting. If you would have been in here last week, you would not have seen any of those lights on that side because we had to reposition the lights. So our lovely friend Tino, he switches out the lights for us, and that is what he uses right now as the scissor lift because it makes it a little bit easier because he can have about 5 or 6 different lights, change them out in one go instead of having to go up the ladder, switch one, come back down, move it over. So,
Ooh.
And believe it or not, that can get into some tight spaces because we haven't had to move a single case, and he literally just takes his time and goes through there, and it can make some tight corners and tight spaces. And Kirsty's been really great because the cases are pretty much set, and she's been working with Tino to focus on lighting to make sure how we want it to hit, and then what kind of light bulbs, because I know we talked a bit about this, but when it comes to lighting, in this case, we want it more subdued. We don't want as much light on these artifacts. And then clothing's on the other side, and we're gonna talk a little bit about clothing, but you very much do not want a lot of light shining on these garments. And it definitely comes into play. But the scissor lift is awesome. Don, we've got firearms.
I see that, yes.
So there
Sorry, it's
are
shifting.
5 very large, very heavy cases,
Come on, friend.
very similar to the one that's already in the back.
Yeah.
That Caleb has pulled firearms, and they will be
We
all
got
along that
fuzzy.
wall.
Yes, we are fuzzy.
We got
Fuzzy.
Fuzzy.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't fuzzy, was he?
I haven't heard that since I was like 5 years old, Martha.
I have
Thank you.
not heard that poem in a while.
Let me.
You're welcome. This is a great behind the scenes.
There we go.
There we go. Now you're not fuzzy.
No, we're not fuzzy.
Yeah.
Yay.
Hey.
You can definitely see, and
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
so with these 2 exhibits, minus 1 loan from the Laster family. So Caleb's great grandfather.
Caleb.
Everything is from our permanent collection. And that was the whole focus, that was the whole point with these 2 exhibits, was it would be collections driven and that it would come from what we already have. And we've been working on it for what, the last couple of months?
Yeah. You guys have been in here for a while. If there's anything you want to get close to, I can get close to. I have my phone set up. So just let me
Okay.
know and I can zoom into anything you see that might catch your interest.
So how long is this exhibit going to be going?
It will be going for at least 4 months,
4 months, okay.
with the possibility of it being extended. And, or even increased, or things added, or things
Okay.
rotated out.
Mhm.
So we're very excited about it, and we still have a few lighting adjustments, those mounts. I have some military uniforms that I need to finish putting on mannequins. I'll kind of point that out here in a second. And then object labels, and then of course the final cleaning where we go through the cases and make sure everything looks good, and we're ready to open come Friday. So,
Would you mind going back over General Worth's belt that Don and Myra didn't get to
Yes.
see? If you don't mind. I thought that was pretty amazing. The man who our city was named for.
yes, so General Worth, we have a few pieces of his military uniform. He fought in the Mexican-American War. He had already passed away before the Civil War began, but there was an officer that served under General Worth, and Major Ripley Arnold was the one that when it came time to establish a fort here along the Trinity, he put that name as far as like, well, let's name it after General Worth, and now we have a fort. So we have Fort Worth, and it's stuck.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so
Really
this belt
impressive.
was one that he wore with his uniform. It's blue velvet. It does have, you can tell that there's some wear. You know, velvet, as you can tell, the older it gets, it literally just kind of, it doesn't go to dust, but it breaks down. And it almost like a powder, and it just starts to just come off. So we have a little bit of that. But if we can get to just see his buckle right there, so we've got the nice buckle.
Does that say US on the buckle?
So it does.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see it now.
Mhm. But we do. We have a uniform. I don't believe we have the trousers. We have the jacket, the epaulets, his hat, and a couple of sashes. This sword is not his. It's an additional sword, but it's a similar time period.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And so what's interesting is General Worth, forgive me because I forget the date. He passed away. He got sick and he passed away in San Antonio.
Ooh.
And he was going to work for the government here in Texas. Well, he's not from Texas, he's from New York. And so he was buried here, but then he was reinterred later on in New York. And so he has a monument, I believe in New York City, with General Worth. And so that's always an interesting tie because he was not even from the southern region of the United States. He came here, he was a military, professional military man. And
I didn't know
I didn't
that.
know that either, yeah.
very interesting.
Yes.
And basically with this exhibit, it's transformation of weaponry. Caleb he's pulled projectile points made from obsidian and stone all the way up to, he stops with World War I.
Mm.
So he's looking at different types of weapons, whether it's being used as a tool or if it is a firearm or if it is being seen in combat, and looking at what they're made out of, whether it's bone, obsidian, rock. Everything okay?
Doesn't sound good.
No, we're good. We're good.
Behind the scenes.
Oh, wait, hold on. We're not good, Christy. All right, so we move on.
Museum of Science and History in living sound.
Yep. Yeah. Then let's see. So we've got, I'm not quite sure. I couldn't remember if Caleb had showed you some of our, we have a samurai.
You've seen the swords.
You've seen the sword, but we have samurai armor. And we have a full set, but we just pulled a few
Sorry, friends.
pieces for this exhibit. Try to pull the cord. All right, I'm gonna help you.
Really flip it over the TV.
Gotcha. Bear with us.
Okay.
We're gonna move closer in
That way you can see
so you can see it, because I really like this piece. And it's kind of, I'm not gonna say random, but we collect American history nowadays, but
Yeah.
at one point, don't know how we got it, but we did.
Is that a face?
Mask,
It's-
yes.
Yes, it is. So I will use my
step
phone to
away
get
for just a
closer to it. That way you can look at it, and then we have a system. We're trying it out, see how well it works.
Okay. Oh, I see, yeah.
This is something that everybody doesn't get to see, is how the sausage is made.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my
Oh.
gosh.
Yes. So we'll probably have.
Wow.
You guys have seen the swords before, because we've brought those out. Caleb
Okay.
talked about them before,
Swords.
but he didn't get to bring out other pieces of the armor, which is here.
Those look like gloves.
Yes, we've been calling them gauntlets. Maybe a
Oh.
little long for that.
Mhm.
And then a helmet and a mask. All right, I'm back.
My goodness.
Woo! Isn't it wonderful?
Any idea what those are made of?
Caleb, I need your help.
These are his picks. so
This
he
is
gets
some
to
of
come
his
back.
favorites.
Wait.
You can tell us what they're at.
So it's a combination of metal, leather, and silk, and wood.
And wood. Okay, I knew.
Yes, there will be some wood, especially on the lining of the helmet on the inside. And then I'm guessing some of the backing in this, I don't know what you would call it, whatever is drops down to guard the neck and the front of the neck. It's probably some wood along that side.
Wow, wow.
Like a fireman's hat.
Is it safe to say that, you said metal, is this kind of like chainmail, or is it completely different?
It would be considered chainmail, yes.
Okay.
They're being, just concentric rings of metal. It's probably a little bit thinner than chainmail, like Western chainmail you would think of, but very similar. And I don't know if that's something that naturally occurred in that part of the world. If by this time they would have had contact with Europe, so I don't know if that's something that came from there. I'm not sure how that technology came to be.
Well, and I did know that with samurai armor, they did utilize wood, which I found was very interesting. And so I'm assuming, is there any like wood inlay or any fibers other than what I'm seeing here?
So on this one, I don't think so. Some of the earlier samurai armor, though, you might find that more, at least on the chest piece, especially. This one, though, is a little bit later, from around somewhere between the 1600s and 1800s. So you have more hardened leather and metal for this one. The chest plate is like a hardened leather.
Now, do we have a date for this? Or can you give a general?
The closest that we have, at least in our system, and it's probably right, is that it dates somewhere between the mid 1600s to the mid 1800s, which puts it roughly in the period called the Tokugawa Shogunate.
Yes, and I'm aware, this is kind of what I know. Oh,
The era of what, Caleb?
It's called the Tokugawa Shogunate. Yes, it was a type of government that Japan had at the time. It was one of the first times that all of Japan, those main islands there, was unified, and it's under this one shogunate. And that's where a lot of times you'll hear people talk about Japanese isolationism during that time.
Mhm.
Because they didn't really close off from the rest of the world. They did still trade with China and Korea and a little bit with Europe, but they were very strict culturally about what was okay and not okay. And so a lot of us Americans are familiar with Commodore Matthew Perry coming over with his boats and forcing Japan to open. That was the Tokugawa Shogunate that he was forcing to open, and that really sparked the fall of that government and ended up leading to a whole other system.
Well, thank you, Caleb. Bethany, this is really great photography. I appreciate you homing in on this.
Yeah, this is way better. Like, I'm super excited. I like this. Well, thank you, Caleb. We were going to transition to clothing because I know you're busy.
Yes.
And I don't want to deter you any longer.
Thank you,
but
Caleb.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you so much.
We're gonna shift.
We're gonna shift.
Ooh.
Where do we want to go?
Is there any way to turn this screen that way?
Yeah. That part's easy, just depending on how close you want to get. That's
So
not
Caleb and
a
Kirsty are going back to mounting firearms.
Okay, give me
Wow.
one sec. Let me redo the
We're
blur.
gonna reset up and talk about the other half of the space that we're utilizing.
Restart the camera again. There we
That's
go.
better.
Much better.
Ah,
You've probably seen some of these pieces. We also wanted to focus on clothing. Now, this exhibit's title is A Century of Clothing, circa 1850s to 1950s.
mm.
Now, we all know, and y'all especially know, the museum's textile collection, we have quite a bit, not just in clothing, but we've got tapestries, we've got rugs, we've got woven pieces, we've got flags, we've got quilts. I mean, we have a little bit of everything. But I also know that just like y'all are, the rest of our public, they really like clothing. He said roughly these are what, circa mid 1800s at the earliest, at the latest. So they're easily maybe a few hundred years old, probably not more than that. But I love it because we've got metal, we've got wood featured, we've got like a little bit of like chainmail. So metal, wood.
There's silk in the sleeve, thread that has all the ties that are there.
Probably some leather.
Leather, that's
Yeah.
the one. That's the last check. Good job, Steve.
A little bit, yes.
So it's always interesting because
Drag it all around.
Japanese history and Asian history is not really, I know a little bit, but I'm always learning. And so when it comes to armor, their armor is obviously not full metal, which is what we think of Europe when we think of European armor. They're utilizing various sources. So we've got wood, we've got metal, we've got hide, we've got leather. And so it's really beautiful. These are in very good condition. I'm not quite sure how we got them. They were donated. I know they were not a purchase. And then of course, a couple of blades as well. And then Tino's working on the scissor lift behind us. So that was a question asked, was the scissor lift. Oh, that's really good, Bethany. I like it. I like that. That looks great.
And I can get close because the cases are so.
Well, on the
So I
blade,
can actually touch the case.
on the blade, believe it or not, part of the handle is actually made out of stingray, which I didn't really know. And I kind of had to do some research. I had to do some Googling because I didn't necessarily believe it. But yes, the hide of a stingray is durable. I mean, it works. And it has a very distinct look on it. It's very like pebble, like very just, you see like little bubbles on it. And it's really traditional. I only see the overhead, if you can zoom in. So all of the white part that you're seeing, it would have been stingray, and then it would have been wrapped with some sort of like, it's not rope, but something of a cotton blend. It's not leather, and they would have wrapped it.
Oh, very fancy.
Oh yeah. But we do have, over here on this side, we've got some projectile points, some items made out of bone. And we do have firearms, as far as rifles, shotguns, we have a blunderbuss, but it's not out yet. But we also have a Derringer and 2 or 3 Colt pistols. And we're very happy about those because the idea behind this, Steve, which I think you can understand, is we wanted to show things that people generally ask for.
Yeah.
And to highlight some of our international pieces, but then to bring it back within the United States.
Mhm.
Because people they're always very intrigued when it comes to any type of tool, weapon, firearm, and it's been a while since a lot of these have debuted, if ever. So we were very mindful in making sure that we could pull things that would appeal to people. And so this is half of the gallery, but the other half is clothing. So we have the transformation of weaponry, and then we move over to a century of clothing. And we're about to do that because you've seen some of the clothing, but a lot of people haven't seen it. And so when we start getting, oh, here she goes. So what she's got are a lot of the firearms. And again, he stops at World War I. Is there any way, Bethany, to go to this last case over here to show the wooden rifle, the practice rifle? Yeah. And so again, this is another
Wow.
ode to local history because that was in Camp Bowie. So that was here. There was a camp during World War I, just briefly here. And that's where that comes from.
They still use wooden rifles in the drill team
Yes.
when they practice.
When they practice, they use those. Yep. So it's still kind of the same. But I
Yep.
actually didn't know we had that wooden practice rifle until Caleb, wherever he's at. Oh, he's going to go do something. He ran. And he found that, and I said, I'll be dang. I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't even know we had one practice rifle, and anything involving Camp Bowie is a
Mhm.
to me because it's part of Fort Worth history that a lot of people are unaware of, and that's
Yeah.
interesting. And it essentially opens up this whole development of West Fort Worth. You know, West Fort Worth has its own little story behind it and just how it emerges. And you know, and then next comes like what, General Dynamics and Convair and all those, it's, so I always think I always like to keep people in as far as like the development of Fort Worth, because from north side to south side, east side and west side, they're all, it's different, and how it forms is very interesting. That's interesting to me, but okay. All right, Bethany, you about ready? We're gonna move over to clothing, because Kirsty is still mounting things, and we're gonna get out of her and Tino's way.
Figured we might want it a little higher now that we have clothing coming into play.
Yeah. I'm gonna help Bethany.
There goes the scissor riser.
Yep, there it goes.
Now we'll want it.
Yeah, okay. And we're gonna tilt this. You lift it up for me. I lift it up. Oh, forward. Like that. Okay. Yay, go Bethany. Okay, so I'm back. Clothing, you know how much we love clothing. So the goal behind this exhibit, well, both of them, Steve and Martha, was we wanted people to, as much as possible, be able to walk around everywhere and do a 360 on all of these cases. So everything was with that mindset of being ADA compliant, and then just wanting people to be able to get super close to the item, but still be protected. And people will be able to take pictures, they'll be able to walk around. We've added seating, we've added benches in hopes that people won't get in a hurry, that they can come and look at stuff or Google things or strike up a conversation or make note of it. But that's really what was pushing these exhibits, were to bring history back and make sure, but knowing that our public ranges, our audience ranges in age. So we're going to have extended families, we're going to have families, just various ages, we'll have members, and knowing that is what was like, okay, what can be out on the floor? You know, if a stroller accidentally hits a case, will the artifacts be safe? And generally speaking, for the most part, yes. So that was also when it comes to staging artifacts. You know, if it gets bumped,
Mhm.
it's not going to be devastating.
Good.
And it's, you know, so when we go through our collection and we're picking items, that's really a key player as of right now, is like, can it stay up for several months without, you know, minimal damage? Even the lighting, Kirsty and Tina are working on it. Textiles, any fabric, anything, any clothing cannot have a lot of light shining on it.
Right.
So it's got to be a little bit more subdued.
So in your planning, you're protecting the
Yes.
artifacts as well as the attendees.
Yes, Bethany and I have these conversations, because you have to strike a balance between protecting the artifacts, but then making them accessible. Right? Because every institution is different and everyone has their own opinion on that. But we're trying, and like I said, especially with the clothing, I made it a point, everything is capable of being on the floor.
And everyone can relate to clothing.
Yeah, people like clothing. I don't think there will ever come a time where people don't like clothing, any type of clothing. And I wanted to focus on, I forgot this last time. I'm gonna go back a bit. So our textile collection. So we have clothing. For this exhibit, I broke it up into 3 areas of clothing because I can't showcase everything. So we did children's clothing, we did military uniforms, and we did formal wear, which is and that's roughly how it's set up. And we'll go over here and look at this suit of a man. late 1800s. It's wool, and you probably haven't seen this one because I'm gonna turn it just a little bit. Now, the jacket and the trousers are part of the same set, but the shirt is not, and there probably was a vest at some point, but it does have tails, and this guy is a little bit on the taller side. So I was working with him this morning. But the jacket and the pants are in very good condition. It's a heavy wool. They're lined on the inside with like a cotton, and it's just, usually when we get pieces of like wool, like garments, it's not atypical that you have a little bit of like, maybe where some moths have gotten into it, you'll see those little holes, and heaven forbid they're larger, but this one is minimal. I was pleasantly surprised when we did this one. And he's tall. He's tall, and he had a little bit more girth and shoulders, and I had to play around with the mannequin to fit him because my mannequin was on the skinny side, and this guy was well proportioned. So, but I just finished him this morning. And then if we go over here, anyway, we're gonna talk about this Victorian dress because it is still formal wear.
That looks really heavy.
It is. But you know what? Those men's suits, like that suit we were just looking at, that one was
Heavy.
very heavy. Because the tails were even extra long. Wool, heavy. I feel like it may have been. But we have
when it's all together, but like we were putting this one on and we were holding
I know.
that one, just holding that coat
just holding that coat.
was so much more weight.
Well, and I was working with the pants, and I had to use suspenders because it was so heavy. It was hanging off the mannequin. I had to play around with that one. But we have beautiful Victorian dress here, circa 1890s. Got a bustle. We've got several folds of fabric. We've got some velvet trim. Women are still in corsets. And then with this one, you can't see on the inside, but there is additional boning sewn into the waist. So she was double in there.
That makes it hard to sit down, doesn't it?
Yes, and when it came to women, when it was all said and done, and they're in their dresses and they're ready to go, like there's been mentions of how women sit because they kind of sit on the side. They lean. And, like they never just sit like what we're doing. They kind of prop themselves up, and the bustle kind of helps with that. But they do just kind of have to, not really set. It's more of just leaning, squat. Yeah. But you're right though that it wouldn't have been fun.
Sit in a corset. Like having the corset on, you wouldn't have been able to just like sit down either.
No, because you're
So we
upright.
have everything else, but there's one to it.
No. I'm generally cold. Like I'm okay with several layers of fabric, but the corseting on the inside, no. But I made this, we were talking about this last time, was, you've got roughly 50 years, because if you think of pre-Civil War, you're technically still in the Victorian age, but you have the hoop skirts. So women are still in corsets, but the skirt, rounds out. By the time you get to the late 19th century, you're still in a corset. Women, you're still in a floor-length gown, but the style's changing and the silhouette is changing. So, yep. We have, Bethany wants to show you the Model T that
Can't
we,
talk about it. I don't know much about it. I just know that we have one.
Well-
And it moved up here.
Oh,
It
that
moved
sounds good.
upstairs,
yes,
Up
Mhm.
here.
and that
Ooh,
one was not, that was a workout because there were 5 of us and we did it when the museum was closed. Now, this one is technically, I believe, fully operable. It's not 100% authentic. There were some parts that were added to this Model T. And I'm trying to think. Hey,
So-
Kirsty, how old is the Model T? Thank you. It's a 1919 edition of the Model T. And everyone loves this. And so we had a fellow coworker, colleague, he was like, well, you know, you could put that upstairs, and it was downstairs, and we can add some clothing that roughly fits around that time. And that's
so you have an elevator that's big enough to put that in?
yes, so we do have a freight elevator. It's
Wow.
just hilarious because it was on one side of the building on the ground floor, and it had to go all the way on the other side, up the elevator, and then come upstairs all the way around to get in here. I don't want to move it anytime soon.
So 5 of you had to push it?
Uh-huh. So we had a couple of jacks and we have some dollies for it. So we just put the dollies on the wheels and then wheel it on in, and then it's on jacks. It's on stands now.
My
Because the
goodness.
tires need to be inflated, and there's only certain areas where you can actually push it, like you can't, the fenders are, you have to like use the axles.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fun one. And I was tired, and I really didn't even do as much. It was hard getting in the freight elevator, but it works.
That behind the scenes stuff is fascinating.
Mhm. So you can tell, like, we still have object labels that need to be mounted. The floor will also get some love. It'll get some TLC. And I still have the military uniforms to do in this back corner. But all of these are encased and they're ready to go. And we've got shoes, we've got a couple of hats, we've got a couple of capes that have been out because I've been trying to have the public look at those. And then we've got a lovely wedding dress in the back, it's an ivory satin
Ooh,
circa 1930s, and she
Oh,
has a
lovely.
Juliet cap with it. So the Juliet cap sits, and then you've got the train of tulle.
I
She
think
was not easy.
Jackie Bouvier wore a Juliet cap
Really?
to her wedding to JFK.
I didn't know that. I guess I never noticed it. I kind of like it. But even Bethany said this style is still modern. Like someone would still wear this. This is a very slim, petite woman. I had to make her arms for the mannequin. I had to make them smaller, slimmer to fit because her wrists were just, you've got beautiful buttons coming down, but there wasn't much to her. She's got a little bit of a train, and you've got this beautiful lace through here, a V-neck. I love it. It's in very good condition. It was just a hard mannequin because she just was not very big.
That's
And I had to do
beautiful.
a lot of custom. Well, Bethany helped. I made Bethany. I was like, Bethany, you have to come help me, because we had to give her a little bit of hips, just a little bit of curve, but not too much. And then this is the Juliet cap. So it's the same lace, but the tulle is probably, I'm going to say maybe 6 feet, 7 feet in length, and it would have been back. And also in pretty good condition. So I like that. I think people are going to like that dress. And then of course we have the children's corner. I'm hoping that since we do get so many families and because we do have kids that they can make that connection and they can see clothing. Because we've got some fun pieces. And I'm a big fan of the little girls, black or not the white and red. But we got shoes. Those are circa 1850. They're in great condition. You've got some hand painting done.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
sweet.
I know, aren't they pretty? And we've got some hats. We've got a girl's straw hat and a boy's sailor hat. Something about sailors, you know, the sailor
Cute.
motif is in a lot of children's clothing.
A lot through the years too.
Through the years, we see it, and I mean, I think it's adorable. I mean, they would even put girls in sailor, you know, you would kind of see that. That was almost unisex. This is the other one. Now, this is a heavy, this one's heavy. It had the matching vest, the overcoat, and the slacks. Wool blend, super heavy. Super heavy. Christy and I worked on this one. It's like a green, it's a green, like an olive green color. And very happy. And then I asked Caleb to get a men's hat, so he got a top hat. Very good condition, made out of beaver, very typical. This one's in great condition. Even on the inside, the lining is still preserved.
Lovely. And beaver's what they make the ceremonial hats out of in Great Britain for the trooping of the color.
Yep, and even like what cowboy hats, like the felt and cowboy hats, a lot of that is beaver. And I don't think people realize that, but I was very happy. And then we have this beautiful lace dress that is also, this one is circa 1910s. Oh, sorry, y'all. There we go. And, you know, she still would have worn a corset, so she still had the undergarments, but, you know, a little bit cleaner lines, still floor-length gown. But we did have to be a little bit careful because of all the lace on it.
Mhm.
Sure, when we pinned it to the mannequin, first of all, I had to find a skinny enough mannequin and then very strategically pin her out because it is a heavier dress because of all of that lace work, because of all of that. Even down at the bottom. The bottom is really what makes it heavy because you've got two layers. You got one on top of the other.
Mhm.
That is where the weight comes. And we all know that when you put something on a mannequin, as far as like how it hangs, gravity is not fun. And the last thing, you know, usually a lot when it comes to our dresses, you can tell where the strain is because it's usually around the waist because it's hanging. So there are pins, stick pins throughout that to help support, you know, so it's not just hanging.
Nice.
But it's just those kinds of things that you think about as far as, you know, making sure nothing gets snagged, making sure that you're minimizing the damage because you definitely want to see them, you know, we want it on display, but it's got to be secure.
And so much work goes into the lace as well.
Yes, and I love any of the lace work. I hope lace is still around, but not like this. And I mean, even my wedding dress had like a lace overlay. It was an A-line, but it had embroidery. It was scalloped around the bottom, but it had a lace overlay. I like lace. Actually, well, it's satin though. But I do like this dress, and I'm very happy. And we actually have in our collection, very similar to this silhouette and time period, we have several dresses like this. There was a pretty blue one that I wanted to bring out, and it had a beautiful train. The only problem I had with it, y'all, was I didn't have a mannequin small enough.
Mm.
Now, she may not have been a full-grown woman, but it was a beautiful dress, and it was actually the first one that I picked. But even our kid mannequins, I couldn't get the dress on her. She was that slim. And it's a bummer. In that case, if I wanted to use that dress, I would have to find a mannequin. Like, that would have to be a special order. I wish you could have seen it. I may pull it for you next time, Bethany, because it's beautiful.
Jesse for school.
Okay. I really wanted that dress because it was in good condition and it had this blue, it was all just a light blue, and I liked the train, and I was like, oh, right. I mean, I didn't have a mannequin to fit her, and I didn't have a case large enough for her to lay flat.
Mm.
Lay the garment flat.
Maybe we can see it in the box next time.
Maybe, because I really was gunning for it, and I tried. I tried to find every mannequin, and I couldn't. Even this one is one of our skinnier ones, and I couldn't get it on her.
You know, it's tiny when a child's mannequin.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
child's mannequin, I couldn't get it.
So many things to think about when you're presenting.
Yeah.
What are the plates held together with that hold up the box? Are they clips or glue or?
They're metal plates, they're metal tabs.
Ah,
So it's one piece. So you've got the base, and then you've got this heavy acrylic, like a pane of acrylic.
Mhm.
And you have the little screws, you take it out and you lift it up. And then we have some metal that's painted, railings that go on the corners to hide those screws and hide the seams. But, you know, and we still have to wipe them all down. We'll do that like Thursday when we're all completely done.
and every day.
We're not touching things.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, we're on the final lap. We're getting there. But I'm very happy. This is a wool suit, formal. What do I need to do?
Whatever you want to talk about. Oh,
Good, Bethany.
Karen talk to them?
Oh, there it is. Sorry, I was looking at it.
Yes, I'm in the corner there.
And so we do need to put the last piece of the plex on it, but it's ready to go. And this one, the original piece is the jacket and the pants, so not the shirt. But this guy was tall, and he was also a little, he was definitely bigger. And he's even a little bit taller than the mannequin itself, but in very good condition. It's actually extremely heavy, both the trouser pants and the jacket. But he does have tails. This is late 1800s. So his tails in the back of the coat go past his butt. And he would have worn shoes and of course a hat, but pushing 6 foot now, and I think he was a little bit taller, but I was working with him, and I had to put suspenders on him. I had to go buy some suspenders and just kind of makeshift them just a bit to support the weight of the trouser pants, because trouser pants are heavy and they're
Wow.
lined and they're in great condition, but the mannequin was still a little bit on the thin side, and he needed more girth. He needed more. So that's where suspenders.
So,
Were they wool?
No.
No. Okay.
so would this be considered everyday wear?
No, so this one's part of our formal wear.
Formal
So
wear.
this one would have been an evening, if you're going out, if you're getting married. It's really more of going out. If you were going to the opera or theater, if you wanted to see a play, if you were going to a ball, if you were going to any event in the evening, you'd be wearing this one. And I'm pretty sure that this would have to be a fall or winter piece because it's very heavy. It's very heavy. But you can kind of see, it looks good. I'm very proud. Like I said, if you look too closely, you can see some of the suspenders, even though I tried to cover it up.
We're not looking. I'm not looking.
Don't see a
Let's just
thing.
say, you know, you can get me started on mannequins, because mannequins, the more you work with mannequins when it comes to clothing, the better you get, because a lot of our mannequins are unisex. So you
Mhm.
have to go in and pick a form, you know. So a lot of them come very slender,
Hmm.
which isn't bad because a lot of our clothing is on more of a slim side, for the exception of this guy. So he's got a lot of cotton batting around his torso and in his back and in his arms to fill out the jacket to make it look lifelike.
Hmm.
Even then, but he works. So it's always interesting because each mannequin is custom.
Mhm.
You know, we pull parts, we make it, we'll do a little bit of sewing. Like I said, we use, you know, like just quilting, like batting. I use muslin to do any overlays. We use stick pins and we do all of that. So each mannequin is custom, and that's really where the time is. Like that's where most of my time has been, is just going through each article of clothing with each mannequin and making sure that it fits.
That's a lot of work, Leslie.
Yes.
Lee, I'm
So-
sorry, Lee.
No, you're fine. No, I love doing it. It just takes time and you kind of have to think about it. And then sometimes I get frustrated and then I have to walk away because I'm like, nope, the mannequin is not cooperating. I'm going to take a break. And then we have wonderful people like Bethany helping us, where it's like, help me with this jacket. I need to put the arm through it, but it's really good. So that's this one. And then I'm going to transition to this Victorian dress. This is late 1890s. And this one was a fun one. It's beautiful. I'm going to wheel it.
Ooh.
What
I don't
dress did
know
you
if
say this was?
1890.
This one's a Victorian dress, so it's late 1880s or 1890s for this one.
What kind of material is that?
We've got a little bit of satin, velvet, and
Mm.
probably at some point cotton on the inside. Now her waist area, she would have been in a corset.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Would have been a corset, but this dress also has additional boning sewn
Ooh,
into the dress that would also cinch her in.
my goodness. And they used real bone back then, didn't they?
They did. They used whalebone. They used to craft that. So we talk about the engineering of a dress. It really is, because if you kind of think of where we're at in the 1850s, you're pre-Civil War, but at that point, women they had wide skirts. You're thinking of, yes, that's the Victorian age, but you have Gone with the Wind,
Mhm.
she's got, pantaloon, she's got
Mhm.
those, but then she also has that hoop skirt,
Yes.
and then the dress, and you're still in a corset. So roughly from that point to the late 1800s, women are still in a corset, but it's a different silhouette that they're wanting. And they're wanting something like this, where it's known as the S, where you've got a bustle in the back and, several folds of fabric that's there and heavily corseted on the inside.
That would
Still
be hard to.
Still covered, but
So this is a dress that somebody couldn't put on by themselves.
no, and that's a great point to bring up. It's a
It
great
is.
because they couldn't have. They could have probably they could have probably gotten into their dress once their corset was set, but they couldn't do the bustle by themselves.
Yeah.
Because bustles are kept up from underneath and pinned on the inside. It's constructed on the inside, but no, they wouldn't have. It's a beautiful gown. We love it. It looks great.
Mhm.
This one is in 2 pieces.
Ooh.
So the bottom skirt. Okay, so you see that bottom layer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That went on first. So she would have had her undergarments and her corset, and then that. Then this whole other piece it's one piece that would have gone over that. And then that is cinched in the waist.
That had to be an uncomfortable time to live in.
Yeah, it's like double corsets.
Mhm.
I don't know if I could do it, but it is a very heavy garment, and the way it is, how it's made in the fabric, I'm gonna guess winter,
Mhm.
and it's meant to be worn outside. Like it's a heavy fabric, both pieces, and I'm assuming that it was meant to not necessarily be worn in the summer, but it would have been an evening dress or an everyday dress because she's still covered. You know, evening dresses for women, they're still in the corsets, but they've got a little bit of a lower neckline.
Mhm.
This case, it's still very high up on the neck. So, you know, maybe during the day in the winter when it's cold, or if she's going to be walking outside, this is what I envision this woman wearing and what she would have been doing. If she needed to go out and about during the day, but it's cold outside, you've got this. You would have worn this. All
beautiful.
right. And another dress that I like so much is this one is circa 1910s. This is a lace dress.
Ooh.
That's gorgeous.
Mhm.
And we love this one. This one was a fun one. A lot of lace, a lace yoke through here and on the sleeve. She also would have had a corset, not as constricting as Victorian. You know, we're moving into the 20th century. Hemline is still down at the ground, maybe a little bit of a train, but she would have worn this most likely in the evening. And I really like the lace on this one because it's an off-white. So it wasn't a white dress, but the lace is beautiful.
It is.
Still a high neckline, so nothing's changed there. It still sits up high.
Okay. I just want clarification. It looks like that is there a white garment underneath this? Or is
Yes,
it?
so
Okay. Because it looked like the shoulders would be bare without it.
So what we did was we didn't have original undergarments for this dress. So what I did was I found a slip, a camisole and a slip to go underneath, because she would have worn something of a cotton, but yes, she would have worn that underneath it. And so because I didn't have that, I went in and added that. So you can kind of see it, because if I didn't have the camisole or the slip, you would be able to see through some of that, because it was designed to be like an overlay. So yes, good job.
That was a good
Not
catch,
appropriate.
John.
Yeah.
So it
That's just
fits.
gorgeous.
Isn't
Isn't
it?
it pretty? The sleeves were a challenge because there's so much lace on the sleeves. You know, it goes all the way here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're putting a dress on a mannequin and it's heavier, the lace is heavier.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to figure out how to secure the shoulders without, first of all, snagging something with a pin, with a sewing, a stick pin, but also not putting stress on that lace work, because it'll snag or it'll pull, and we don't want that. And so that one was a challenge as well.
Beautiful.
We had to go back in and secure the shoulders a little bit more, so that way it wouldn't put stress. Gravity is not our friend.
Yeah.
Not with the mannequin. Everything just slides off.
Old bodies are like that too.
Pretty much so. The last thing, these items are going to be up for a few months, and the last thing we want is any permanent damage. We want to try to minimize that. And when it comes to lace, I get a little nervous.
Yeah.
Lee, that is so much hard work. I know you love doing it.
I do. I like the mannequin.
Wow.
I really do. It's fun as long as I'm not in a hurry. None of us can get in a hurry when we're working with artifacts or installing, because then you get frustrated and mistakes are made.
Right.
I don't like to be in a hurry. do you want to hand it off? Do you want to briefly talk about the top
Hey,
hat?
Lee, what kind of shoes would that dress person be wearing?
Great question. They would have still worn some lace-up boots. So the
Okay.
Lace up boots, okay.
quintessential tall boot with a little bit
Okay.
of a heel, black leather, still needed help lacing up those things.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to step away for just a second because Caleb is going to talk about the top hat because
Oh,
we're fans of
good.
the top hat.
Oh, yes.
And I'm going to move.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to move this towards you,
Okay.
Caleb.
So yes, what Bethany's about to show you, there you go. Okay, is the top hat, like you might think of in Dickensian times, mid 1800s, early 1800s or so. And what I love about this one is that it's actually made out of beaver fur,
Go Beaver.
which you can kind of see the different hairs on it. And the reason why beaver was so popular is because their pelt is water resistant. So if you're riding out in your carriage in London and it's raining, you don't want to get your nice hat wet. But with beaver fur, you don't have to worry with that. And with that said, that's also what sparks a lot of Western expansion early on in the US with French and the Americans both, is that there was such this drive for getting beaver fur because everybody was looking at these fancy people in their coaches wearing their hat, and everyone thought, oh, I want this hat. Let's get this hat. So they created this huge demand. And then all of a sudden, the style of hat, the beaver fur goes out of style, and all of a sudden you don't have this trade anymore. So it really destroys this kind of economy that had been built up in the West of this beaver fur trade. But it
Was
goes
there
away
a
because
beaver,
it's not-
was there a beaver fur shortage or something?
No, the beaver fur is fine. People just didn't want them anymore. because
Oh, they
there
want
wasn't
them anymore. Okay,
style.
got it.
Out of
Yes.
fashion.
So just a whole livelihood was kind of upended because people all of a sudden were like, that's not cool anymore. So that's why beaver hats started becoming a thing. But this one's in really good condition. I love it. I pull it anytime I can.
Is it a favorite?
What's the
Caleb?
lining?
I want to say the lining is silk on this one. But I would have to check. Obviously, we can't tell because of, but I think it's silk.
Okay, thank you.
That would make sense to me.
Caleb, if you were putting this hat in the case for the first time, what all do you have to think through just to get the hat onto the head and into the case? You picked a color, you had to make sure it was the right size. What all goes into just that simple thing?
Yeah, so size is one of the big ones, making sure that sits well on the head. With some hats, supporting the top of it so that gravity doesn't crush it down. Luckily, this one's in good enough condition that we didn't need to build anything up on top of it into the hat. And that one fit pretty nicely on that hat, on that head. Ooh, too many H words.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On my, I'm looking at it on the left side, it looks like there's something holding the hat up from underneath there. Is that part of the hat?
Is the brim curved?
The brim, and there's something below that.
The bottom side of the brim?
Okay, it just says, looks like a tan something.
It does. It's a different color.
Okay,
It's just the
Oh,
lining.
yeah, it's the lining underneath the hat.
okay, thank you.
Yes, no, it does, but it doesn't actually curve that way. And so, like, did y'all talk about the Juliet cap?
No, I can't.
Yeah, because I think that one you can see a bit better how we have to spell things.
And we'll need to make that our last item today, Caleb.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hate to say that.
Yes.
I could be here with you all day.
So this is a Juliet cap. It goes with a wedding dress that we have. Did y'all see the wedding dress?
We saw,
No, we did not.
No.
Yes. So that's a wedding dress, and that's the cap that goes with it.
Ooh.
So that one we had to build up a bit. You can see in the back to keep it stretched out, and then just how we had to lay the lace around it, because obviously it's a very long train. That had to go into it. Then the other thing we have to think about is height. So where do we want people to be looking at it from? Is it going to be too tall for the case? So the case goes over the top. So you have to think about getting it back on there as well. So in this case, because the top hat stood up so much, we didn't have to raise it. But with this one, obviously it sits flat on the skull, so we raised it up just a little bit. So that people can
Do
see
you
it.
have a whole room full of those foam heads?
Yeah, kind of. We have a whole room full of mannequins, and we have boxes that just say like mannequin heads or mannequin arms, mannequin underwear, and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. So much to
So it's-
learn.
It's where we also eat our lunch, so it can get a little creepy sometimes if you're not expecting it.
Now, you will be showing us this same walkthrough again at 11:30. So
Yes.
if anybody wants to come back and watch it again, they're going to go through this again for another 45 minutes in a little bit.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Ooh,
Yeah, there's a couple of children's hats.
I want to stay with you all day.
There's a lot to see.
There is.
There is. I want to say thank you so much to Caleb and Bethany and Lee and Kirsty. We got a behind the scenes look at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History. You can't get
Yes,
any
thank you
better
guys
than that.
very much.
Absolutely.
Don't get to see
Absolutely.
y'all.
Any final questions before we let these kind folks go today?
Nope,
Thank you, guys.
appreciate it.
We really thank you. Nancy, any final questions today?
No.
Okay. Well, y'all have a great day.
Yes, Kirsty says bye too. She's in the
Bye,
back.
Kirsty. Yes.
On the wall. They say bye too, Kirsty.
Y'all want to see what's coming up?
Yes,
Let's
please.
do.
Okay, we'll take a look. There's the Fort Worth Museum. Let's make this a little bigger. Fort Worth Museum at 10:30 and 11:30. So we might hear some different things at 11:30. You never know. And at 1:30, we're going to play some Jeopardy if
Huh.
you're so inclined. And then
And
tomorrow,
Nancy's gone, so she doesn't know that.
I told her earlier.
Oh, did you?
She
Good.
actually said it to me. Oh, Jeopardy at 1:30. And she's got some conflict. She said she'll make up her mind. And then tomorrow, the Postal Service with the Amon Carter Museum at 10:30. Dementia Friendly Naoko with her harp at 11:30. And Moving to Heal at 1:30. We've just got so much.
Yes, we do.
Yay. Well, y'all have a great day. I hope I'll see lots of you in the next 48 hours.